Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. This would be the Jeff Cameron Show right here on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Great to be with you. Hope you had a good weekend. Good Monday, everybody. I'm Jeff. That's Tom. We're online, ESPNTallahassee.com. That's where you go to listen live via the streaming free always. Don't miss anything, but if you do go back, get caught up at your leisure. We'll post all 3 hours of the program upon its conclusion today. Apple Podcasts will suffice. Anywhere you get podcasts, go find the show. Rate, review, share. Let others know. Email the program if you like, JCS at 97.ESPNradio.com. Twitter at JCameronShow. And hello, YouTubers. Good to be alongside you as well. Hit that like button and share as well. What a weekend. What a great weekend that was. Holy moly. Where to start? First of all, knock on wood, we got some good fortune coming our way, right? It's finally happening because everything that's happened up until Saturday has been really difficult for the most part for this staff, for Coach Norvell since he's arrived, including having the entirety of spring practice wiped out a year ago. And then it looked like a tornado was going to keep us from seeing this game on Saturday. But alas, the skies cleared and maybe opened our eyes and a path towards something better, right? We watched, I think, enough highlights of progress, and certainly I can give some insight into what happened over the weekend for me and how incredibly grateful I am for that as far as being involved as a guest, quote-unquote, celebrity coach and getting to see the process firsthand, getting to see from the inside out and relay that to you. But you saw some good play. You saw some, in my mind, steps forward, certainly from Mackenzie Milton, who was a good ways back for much of this spring when it came to the quarterback race, and Jordan Travis. Didn't look like this was much of a competition for a lot of spring. And I thought, well, we got a problem here because this guy was going to be the guy that we came in who has had legitimate success as a passer and put up prolific numbers. And if we're getting a shell of a guy that is coming back from injury, who's still learning the playbook and is having a hard time getting acclimated, well, I don't know how much progress we're really going to make. And the last week or so, he got a lot better. The last scrimmage and then the last couple of practices and then this spring game, you saw him take a big step forward. So I think, first and foremost, let's look at that. When you get into the fall, Mackenzie Milton, Jordan Travis doing battle at the most important position on the field will get Florida State to a place they haven't been in a while, which is, I think, somewhere close to decent quarterback play. It's been a while, man, since we've seen real solid quarterback play. I think you got a chance now that this is a legitimate competition and that both guys got better. Jordan Travis got better as a passer. Mackenzie Milton seemed to figure out the offense late in spring and then really look more at ease in a game situation than I thought he'd look. So that's important. The young receivers look like they're going to be people that you can trust, players that you can see take a step forward. Maybe, just maybe, that's sort of what happened for them in this game. As you looked at the young guys, you had to have gotten excited in many ways about the youngest, like Malik McClain, Josh Burrell, guys like that. Those guys, body types, you get excited about. You look at them, they look like they're physically ready to compete. Receiver's a really tough position to come in and make it look easy because your head's kind of swimming early on. Everything happens so fast in college football compared to high school football, and you can't just out-athlete people. It's precision, it's timing, it's a lot of things. The guys that are covering you are bigger, stronger, faster, and they hit harder. And so receivers have a hard time. And then sometimes catching the ball becomes the issue because you're thinking about so many other things. And most of this spring, everybody dropped the damn ball. I mean, every practice I went to and the scrimmage that I went to, the ball was on the ground all the time. Drove me nuts. It was either errant throws or a lack of concentration or focus, whatever it was. There was no consistency in the passing game. But if you watched on Saturday evening, guys made plays. Guys made big plays, sometimes in traffic, sometimes they separated, just made really fluid catches and made plays after they made the catch. So, again, a step forward there from some of the younger receivers as well. We've felt pretty good about the running backs for some time. I do know the offensive line has a ways to go, It will get better when it has all of its pieces, plus perhaps a transfer tackle or something along those lines. Defensively, guys knew where to be. You saw flashes. Jermaine Johnson, number 11, is going to be an impact player for Florida State. He's going to be a guy that gives us hope that the secondary doesn't get hung out to dry time and again because a quarterback's got 6, 7, 8 seconds to throw the football. Jermaine Johnson's a problem for people, a big-time problem for people. Also, I love that kid's attitude, love that kid's mind, love that kid's work ethic and leadership. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. Got a good chance to talk with him at length on Friday night and again on Saturday down on the sidelines. There's just so much to be excited about. And then if you factor in fans got a chance to see a game in perfect weather and then afterwards gather over there, College Town, it was a lot of fun to see people excited about football again, a lot of fun to see people in person again, feeling a little bit more at ease. I've mentioned before that obviously as we get further along with this and those that want to get the vaccination can, and those that don't, obviously you make your choices. I have, Tom has, and many people that I talked to on Saturday night had, so felt pretty comfortable being out and about outdoors as we were having a couple drinks and really talking about this Florida State football program and where it's headed. And then I think lastly I would say this. Mike Norvell and his staff are doing a good job of revealing that they're forward-thinking, that they're progressive. You look at the name, image, likeness step forward today in the social media post, and it was, I think, smart. It's a carrot to dangle to recruits that, hey, we get it, and we're for you making a little bit of money off your brand. And you know what? We're going to set up infrastructure for you to be able to do just that and get course credit for it. So come on board. Smart. A lot of things going in the right direction here. Now, I preface all of this by saying that's not a great football team. They're not going to go out and win 10 games this year in all likelihood. That would be a minor miracle in my eyes. But they're going to play hard for that guy and for that staff. They're going to play together. That I seem pretty certain of based on what I heard down on the field and what I saw on Friday night and what I listened to when the players talked about this staff and the work that they've put in. And I think they're going to play a lot smarter. And to me, that gives you a fighting chance to win those 50-50 games. You might win the lion's share of those 50-50 games because you're organized, because you're buttoned up, because you play together, because you sacrificed, because you're all pulling in the same direction. You give yourself a fighting chance to win some damn football games. When you're fractured and everything looks disjointed and convoluted, obviously it's hard to win games. This looks like a step forward. They've got a ways to go, but you saw en masse how many recruits that came into town this past weekend were very excited about the direction of this football program. Good news almost all the way around from Saturday's spring game. And I don't say that to say it. I don't say it because it's more fun to talk about the positive than the negative. You guys know I can be as negative as it gets. I just saw a lot of progress on Saturday. Long ways to go, but a lot of progress was made.
Saturday was a good day to be a Nole. Saturday was a good day to be a fan of Florida State football. We haven't had many of those Saturdays where it feels good to be a fan of Florida State football the last handful of years. And I can tell you that's, outside of the obvious things in the last year, like getting married, that is one of the best days I've had in a long, long time because of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Because there was just joy. You could see it in people's faces. The football program did a really good job of putting itself out there to recruits, of selling itself. I think it did an exceptional job of that. For me, I called it the sales game. This is the sales game weekend. You got to give boosters, recruits, and fans a reason to believe we're coming out of it. But what I got instead, more than that, was double the same feeling, which is we're coming out of it. As a Nole program, as fans of the football program, I think we bottomed out. I think we're coming back to life a little bit. Does that mean we're winning 10 games? No. But are we going to get better? Yes. And then as a world, we're coming out of it, man. We're coming out of the pandemic. Being able to do that show on location at a place that doesn't advertise with us, the energy in that place, the smiles, big-time boosters, normal fans, all standing together, talking about the Noles and the spring game and what's coming in the future and just being amongst each other. What a feeling. We're coming out of it, man. It was a great, great Saturday.
Had a good conversation with John Ford Griffin, former Seminole great baseball player and really one of the all-time Seminole greats. And we were just talking about coaching philosophy and connecting with players, and you get to the highest level, really what resonates, what doesn't. And he was just excited to hear. I kind of told him some insights that I had from hanging out over the weekend with Coach Norvell and his staff and the players. And he said, man, that's what I want to hear. That resonates. Because if you start talking about technical stuff and you start talking about teaching things, and I get that you have to coach and you have to put kids in positions to succeed. But when we get to that level where you do have good players and you have guys that were transcendent from their high school, really the thing that separates you is what you're willing to do to sacrifice for the guy that's calling the plays, what you're willing to do to sacrifice for the guy that's next to you, what you're willing to commit to, because everybody's good at that point. And so he was excited to hear that. Yeah.
I don't want to put the cart before the horse because you've got the stories to tell. But in short, what the stories you're going to illuminate the people on, if you've got players who want to play for him, we are now seeing a roster that's going to help recruit for us for the next group.
Correct.
That's been gone. That's been gone for years. And Jimbo even said it back in the day when he was a badass on the trail, finishing top 10, number 1 in the ACC every year. Your players are the most important recruiters you have because they're going to shoot straight to the kids incoming. Stay away from here. He says this, but he's actually going to do something else. If you got buy-in from this group and you had 100 kids over the weekend stop by, they can't see the coaches technically, but they might be able to text another player. Maybe they played in their same county or the same high school, and they're going to go to war for Norvell. Things are going to get better, and they're going to get better fast in terms of recruiting.
Yeah, and I talked to a lot of people, obviously, at the game and after the game on Saturday. Look, the spring game format is – I don't think we're ever going back to where we were, but I want to point something out. There are programs, Michigan being one of them, for example, that allow for no enthusiasm, no access whatsoever, no insight whatsoever. Fans didn't even know it was going on. Did you read that? I mean, Michigan had a spring game and didn't tell anybody. All they did was post highlights that had happened.
Oh, my.
So that doesn't exactly engender confidence in the direction of where you're headed, right, where you don't even want anybody to see you. Norvell's been the opposite. He's been open about all of this. I benefited greatly, obviously. He had me over along with Andrea Adelson and Gene Deckerhoff and Andy Staples to come over and guest coach and to get, glean some insight. I'll talk about this in more detail as we go along, but I had a really nice time out at Coach Norvell's house on Friday night. He, as an invite, all of his players were there. I got to talk with a lot of players, got to talk to the assistant coaches. And I think you could really connect with what he's trying to infuse in his program, which is a sense of togetherness and a sense of one. He expressed as much, told the players in no uncertain terms, you all mean a lot to me. I understand what and I'm paraphrasing, but I understand the sacrifices you've had to make to be part of this program, more than what we would ordinarily ask of you because of COVID and all of that. And it was genuine, and they felt it, and they responded accordingly, and I witnessed it. I feel honored to have witnessed it. It's just pretty cool to get that glimpse of something that's building. And I'll continue to reiterate, this is not a program that is littered right now with elite game day difference makers. You don't look out onto that field right now and see a stud at every level. You don't look out there and see an abundance of riches the way the 2013 team had, or any team that's competing annually for a conference title or Power 5 conference title or a national title or a playoff spot. Those are teams that when you watch those practices, you know instantly, well, this is going to be a problem for people because they've got 4 options at receiver, 2 stud running backs. They're 2 deep on the offensive line. All can play. Their quarterback's really good, going to be a first-round draft pick. That's not this team. They're not there yet, and they've got a ways to go. So when you hear me prattling on about how great things went, I don't want you to mistake that with I think they're going to win 11 games. I'm not telling you that. What I am telling you is that if you're reasonable and you understand that you can't go from 3 wins and really the disastrous turn of events that have led to that point and suddenly find yourself in the realm of 10, 11 win teams, you can't do that overnight. It's not going to happen, but you got to start somewhere, right? It's that first step you got to take. Well, you got to get guys who believe in the message, believe in the coaches, believe in each other, and are all pulling in the same direction. I see that now for sure. And then they got some guys. They got some guys in the transfer market, and they got some guys emerging. Some of the younger players look really good. So they do have a few players that I think can make a big difference this year. I thoroughly enjoyed what took place Saturday for what it means in the future. It wasn't that I walked off the field. Now, Granted, my experience of being able to coach late in that game and to put the headset on and to have so much fun and learn a lot and have the players involved in the way that they were, I think all of them. But that was secondary to what I learned walking off that field, which is, man, this is not the fractured group that I saw last year, year before. I mean, we were talking about as early as 2015 growing concerns that there was poison in that locker room, that there were problems, that guys weren't buying in as much. It seemed the program had begun to stall. Even the results on the field were okay. They were pretty okay. We'd see moments where we'd go, man, I don't know. We're not piggybacking off the success of 13-14. This looks like it's going to take a little while, and then obviously it fell off a cliff. This is the first time I've been optimistic in a while.
Yep.
Really optimistic is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, that's it. It was a day, and I said this in the post-game show. I remember when Odell took over for Jimbo, and we were 5-6. We had to schedule the Delaware State game. And you felt like after watching that beatdown, which was already going to happen, you get the bowl, he gets the bath of Powerade.
Mm-hmm.
You felt like there was healing going on for the program. Like that was a good day. You could see the weight being lifted off of everybody's shoulders in that sideline. There was joy on the sideline. You're like, oh, because there have been coaches fighting and yelling at each other.
Sure.
And it was over. It was all over. And it felt good for a little while to be a Nole fan, but then it got worse. Somehow it got worse from that season when we went 6-6. But since then, I've had a sense of dread. Outside of Willie's first game, about halfway into that Virginia Tech game, you realize, uh-oh. And then the Syracuse game 2 weeks later.
Well, that's the one where we all
uh-oh.
went, uh-oh, yeah.
I've had dread as a Nole football fan every week since then, or every offseason. I don't feel dread today. That's what Saturday did. I don't dread the season. I look forward to the season.
Well,
okay, nice. It's nice to be here again.
Yeah, I do too. I can deal with the process. I can deal with the climb, as they call it. I can deal with some of the setbacks that happen along the way. And the reason I can deal with it, because that's a reality. That's going to happen. They're going to lose some games. They may even lose some games in an ugly fashion because I don't think they're good enough yet. And God help them, knock on wood, if they suffer some injuries to some of these segment groups. They're not deep enough to be able to fill those holes with players of that caliber. So that's all going to be about the recruiting and elevating the floor through getting better talent in here. Right now they have some momentum in recruiting, so that's important because this next class looks really, really good. It's shaping up that way. But I can look forward to it because I think the buy-in's there, and I think that the process will reveal they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot as much as we've seen in recent years, and they're not going to be disjointed and fractured in the way that made it obvious that there was nobody on the same page for so long. This will be everybody fighting for one another, and that's important. You can deal with losses if the losses come about because you're not good enough. When you lose games to teams that have inferior talent because you're disorganized, because guys aren't bought in and don't play real hard, because there's mass confusion, that's hard to stomach. Nobody wants to get behind that. Nobody can deal with that. That's not what this will look like this year.
Understanding that he got screwed last year and nothing, like I don't grade that. That's an incomplete grade, right? But they had one slogan last year that said, watch us work. And they still say that, I think. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't want to. I don't want to. That's what I felt like as an Nole fan for years. Like, I don't want to. Now I do. After seeing the practices and then seeing this performance, and you got the better insight in terms of the heartbeat of the team, the heart and soul moments of the team. If they are, in fact, pulling together as it would seem, and you're telling me firsthand that they did, that they are, okay, yes, I can accept 8-4, 7-5 as you're building, as long as you're building. We've been tearing stuff down for years. Let's start building again. It's nice.
Hideki Matsuyama wins the Masters. He becomes the first player from Japan, male player from Japan, to ever do that. The weight of the world on his shoulders. I thought it made for an intense last couple of holes as you wondered whether or not he was going to collapse under the weight of that pressure. He does not, and that's an uplifting moment. A really good moment for Augusta National. A great moment for him and for a nation. And Hideki Matsuyama is one of the good guys on tour. Really universally acclaimed by most who've ever been associated with him and played with and against him. Really well liked. I was happy for that. That kind of put a nice little cherry on top of the weekend to watch him finish that off. And we got a little bit of drama late, so that worked out well too, because for a while there it felt like a bit of a snoozer. Good for him. I'll have comments on that later. I think it's pretty impactful for the world of golf that he win. Can't imagine what it is for him today to wake up knowing that he's achieved this and he's the first to do it. And obviously the financial opportunities are going to be left, right, straight in front of him, behind him, over top of him. Anywhere he looks, he's going to see money if he wants it. Although he's incredibly shy and really reserved, so it'll be interesting to see what he does with that.
The marketing firm for HSBC, you're like, all right, this is why we invested in you, Hideki.
Well, it's funny, by the way, and one side note here. So one of the reasons that he's never been able to win a major primarily is his putting. He is not a great putter. I read something this morning that the difference between him on bent grass compared to any other type of surface they play, it is the greatest difference of any player on tour, his average strokes gained putting when he plays on that surface as opposed to Rye or Poa or anything, right? Like he becomes a completely different player to a point where it's a full two strokes. Like it doesn't make any sense. You won't see a contrast that great. And even then, he's still not a great putter. He just goes from being one of the worst putters ever to you can get by with this. You can be in the 50s with this. And the reason that's important for him is that he's always in the top 5 of ball striking. He's a ball striking Jesse. His iron play is exceptional. He can do everything with a golf ball. He's in control of the golf ball most of the time.
Oh, he'll strike some balls now.
But man, he gets to the green and it's just, oh, sir. And I thought it was funny because it even played out on 18. He misses that putt. And you're like, of course you did. You're not going to make that putt. I think he knew he wasn't going to make that putt. The key was just don't let it go by too far.
Right,
I have to make the same putt coming back because you wouldn't make that either. And that would have been disastrous. So glad nothing like that happened. Good to see. All right, I'll get into some more of the coaching stuff and the fun that I had this weekend. I know a lot of you have asked about it. I'll touch on it throughout the show today. Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. It's up at ESPN Radio. So much to take in. Too bad the bullpen sucked yesterday for Florida State because I kind of put a little dapper on things.
That was a good game for the first couple hours, and then it just got way out of hand.
Bullpen decided, hey, we got screwed on Friday, though.
Yes.
And I'm still angry about
Objectively speaking, yes.
Yeah, I'm really angry about the problem there. Listen, something learned here, everybody has pointed to the wheel route that we got torched on, me and Gene, in the quote-unquote celebrity coaches, guest coaching category. You know what? I've learned a lot about coaching at that level, Tom, this weekend. One of them is that you don't dare roll your fellow coaches or players under the bus. So you just have to accept responsibility. Now, I have a lot of things I'd like to say that I simply will not for the betterment of the program. So it was a great win for Andrea Adelson. I'm proud of her. She is all class. So maybe next time we'll get an opportunity to run more plays, and maybe we'll see real growth between that time and this time.
Well, I suppose since I'm not a part of that function, that I can just say whatever I want. Unlike you've got to protect the program.
Yeah, I do.
I can say if you're going to be chicken and listen in to the other team's play calls, as somebody did on the opposing coaching staff.
They admitted to it.
And it's public knowledge. It was in Andrea's piece as well.
Yeah.
That it may have happened more than once. I believe one of the articles says it happened once. The other one says or implies it happened a lot more than once.
I found out afterwards, Andy was good enough to admit that to me. So, you take advantage of a situation in which you can hear other people's play calls. That makes you feel better about,
Go Gators, right? Just go Gators. That's what you do.
On a side note, let me say this. I've always wondered the headsets that you see coaches wearing. How'd they sound? How crystal clear or not are they? It's funny, we were getting set, and again, I thank everybody at FSU. I start with Mike Norvell, but Derek and all the coaches and players and everybody involved. It was simply spectacular. Everybody, the transition to learning how to do it and go about the process and their efforts to help out, it just couldn't have gone any smoother, and I do appreciate it. But I always wondered, just as a long-time, obviously, football fan and somebody who at one time thought about wanting to coach, and even when I did the coaching here locally in the 90s, back when I was doing a morning show and I could do things in the evenings and coach Pee Wee football in essence, we didn't have headsets or anything like that. You're just barking out things like that, and you're doing your hand signals and all that. So I always wondered what those things sound like, and they are crystal clear for people who want to know, like the details, the minutia. So the way it works is you get your headset connected to that receiver, and it goes through your belt loop, right? And then you can switch between offensive and defense.
Or if you're Bruce Arians, you put it on like Chewbacca has.
It's bizarre. Yeah, I don't know why you do that, but yeah, you can when you're calling offensive plays, it's on one channel. When you're calling defensive plays, it's on the other channel. Or when you want to listen to coaches of either side of the ball, you move between the two frequencies. And then if you don't want anybody to hear what you're saying, which there's a distinct possibility if you're saying something that is negative or born out of frustration that you don't want everybody to hear it, you just have to pull your mic up. And I think kids listening to this will get this better than adults. Like if your kids play Fortnite or any game online, the headsets that they wear, they operate the same way. And you don't switch between channels, but if you pull the mic up, it goes mute. Pull it down, it's live as soon as you do it. You don't have to press a button. That's true of these things. Then you are, you're constantly thinking about that. Like so as soon as the ball goes to the other team, like, oh yeah, I got to switch channels. But also just getting that feedback, everybody can be on the mic at the same time. So Coach Norvell was, same time that Kenny Dillingham was, same time that Adam Fuller was, and then all the other assistant coaches can hear you. So if you're asking questions, the feedback, everybody hears it. And I had a couple moments where, I said some pretty, salty things, and I could hear coaches laughing, and Norvell would get on us a little bit. He was funny about that. Coach Norvell would tease us if he liked the call, didn't like the call, what he thought was going to happen. But the number one thing you notice, and I again have great appreciation for this, is that you don't have as much time as you think you have between plays. You just don't. There's a lot, because what ends up happening is, if you're going to change up your coverage scheme, or you're going to change up whether or not you're your front, whatever you're going to change, obviously personnel's got to come in and out of the game, and it gets signaled by your assistant coach. So as soon as you decide, let's go, cover 4, and you say that, the corresponding play, I got to get that over, so Adam will call it to his, so I call it up to Adam. Adam then turns, Coach Fuller then turns to one of his assistants down on the field who can hear that, and then tell them the corresponding personnel, because they had pared down the playbook. So we've got a very general base, aspect of what they do, but then there's nuance within that. So if you're asking for the extra corner or a nickelback, he's got to signal that in really quickly. So the point would be this: if somebody runs a play, it's a 3-yard gain, it's 2nd and 7, and then they go tempo, which for Florida State is wood. You yell at wood, that's tempo. And I'm not giving anything away there. I mean, everybody's got a word for tempo. Nobody cares if they're going fast. They're just going fast. You got to get lined up or you don't. But it's wood. If you yell that and you want to try to catch them flat-footed or get them to where they can't change out personnel, so if you're on the defensive side and the offensive coordinator of there does that, you've got to have something ready now. The ball's being snapped. And that was the number one thing, because you can get lost. Like that first series for them, we got a 3-and-out from them. We stopped them. And I was kind of relieved, but then because of the way they set that up, you're back on offense. You got to go. And you got to switch channels.
That's a really impressive 3-and-out, since they know your coverages beforehand. It's an aside.
But you're not free from the bitter disappointment of a play not working or a kid not making a play. And I can see where you're trying to, on the exterior, make sure you don't indicate you're frustrated all the time. What, are you going to be frustrated all the time? I mean, you got to go to the next play. But I could see that takes some getting used to, because we had a young man drop a pass. We had a breakdown, and you feel like you've called the right play. You feel like you're set up for success, and then it doesn't happen because the game's played by human beings. So it's pretty funny. But that was neat to hear that, to listen to that, to listen to their interaction, to listen to coaches talk to one another. It is so clear, though. I always wondered, does it get muffled? Is it like a cell phone where it kind of comes in and out?
So
it was really good.
All right, here's a Joe Public question for you. Who's the coolest guy to listen to? Who's the one that made you laugh the most?
Kenny Dillingham.
There's no hesitation there.
Yes, he's funny. He's animated. He's got an assessment of every play. He's got an assessment of every play, how it was executed, whether it was or was not, the reasons it worked or didn't work, and why that was a good or bad thing. You'll hear about it.
What's it like, the two of them interacting on there? What does that sound like?
Mike's calm. Mike kind of stays calm. Well, at least, it's a spring game, so I don't know how he is in a game situation with a lot more on the line. This is just a spring game, but I did get to kind of see that dynamic. And it makes sense, because he's on the field watching directly behind the quarterback, and he's about to say something to him and reveal something to him. Late in it, you could hear the assistant coaches and some of their frustrations when things weren't working, and they're barking down to Mike Norvell what went wrong, because they can see from on high, and what they're mad about, or what they're excited about, what did work. But Mike is listening to that while talking to his player. So he's getting an earful of good or bad and what they're going to do next. But yet he's remaining dead calm, taking that in and expressing whatever he wants to express to the quarterback. Obviously, it was not a good day for Tate Rodemaker, who I would say is firmly entrenched as a third or fourth stringer at this point. Got a long ways to go.
Had his moment in the sun a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, the problem he has, and you could see it up close being down on the field, it's moving too fast for him. He cannot pull the trigger. He really has a hard time pulling the trigger, and I think, admittedly, there was real frustration. Everybody caught it on TV, so I'm not giving you something you don't know, but when you take a sack in the 2-minute, man, coaches are not going to react favorably in that moment. If you take a sack in the 2-minute drill, you're going to hear about it. And it's that. Listen, there's no secrets here in college, big-time college football, and obviously in the pros. And there's a lot on the line. And you got to be able to coach kids hard, and they got to be able to handle that. And from what I witnessed, players can handle it. They can, and the only way they handle that is if they believe that you have their best interest in mind and that you care about them.
So Kenny,
Kenny's funny.
Would assess things like you would appreciate the way he assesses things.
Oh, absolutely. There's no room for nonsense. Here's the deal: you either failed miserably, and here's why, and don't do that again, or good job. That's the way we want it done. On to the next play. There's no ambiguity in the way that conversation goes.
Yeah, there's one comment at the first practice we were at about perimeter blocking.
Oh, it's hilarious.
I mean, did you guys divulge that on oh no, it was in the write-up, so somebody else has said it.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, we need to get better perimeter blocking.
Blank and suck at that is what he said.
Yeah, we suck at that stuff, and stuff wasn't the word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was something before
Oh yeah.
the word suck, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how as a player you wouldn't want that though.
Yeah.
Like I've always in any sport responded better to a coach who doesn't leave anything to be, misunderstood. I want to be told, as long as I think that, again,
as long as you're not getting personal.
Yeah, right. As long as you're not getting personal and you're really assessing the play or the performance or the lack thereof or the lack of execution, you can, these are big guys. These are strong dudes. These are men. They've all heard bad words before. You'll live with it. It's okay.
What's interesting to me, though, and what's great is, in earnest, for real, we have a quarterback battle brewing.
Oh,
Tate's
awesome.
not going to be a part of it right now.
No, he's not.
But the other two give you different things, and they both played well. They both made plays. When McKenzie got in a rhythm, there's a throw up the right sideline, back shoulder, and then the throw for the touchdown to the left pylon. You've got Jordan making the throw against his body across the field to Cam McDonald after he rolls out to the right. You've got his ability to break out and run. This was a really good day for a lot of reasons, but then also selfishly as media members, it's nice to have a quarterback battle entering fall camp.
Well,
that's real nice.
Yeah, and I was specifically very worried about the way that went because McKenzie Milton was a guy that I thought would come in and, yes, he would make Jordan Travis better, but eventually I thought he would make enough strides that we felt comfortable moving into the fall that the guy that has been the better passer, the more accomplished passer, was going to win the job. And as this spring has gone on, it looked like there was no chance in hell that was going to be the case. I want competition at every position. I want fierce competition at every position. It brings out the best in every athlete. This was a one-sided competition for much of spring. We'll talk to Ira in the 4 o'clock hour, and I know that we both thought McKenzie's coming along slowly. It started to happen late in spring. But when you put kids under the gun, under the lights, if you will, with fans in the stands, and things are happening faster, to see him perform that way is very uplifting because I think now that competition is legit, and I think that will only get the most out of both guys. I would say this, the Jordan Travis throw across to Cameron McDonald, that's not a throw you want to see him make. It worked, but it's not ideal, and it's the kind of that's not really is repeatable. It's the kind of playmaking he has the ability to do. What I care most about is that he got better from the pocket, and he got a lot better this spring from the pocket than at any point last year.
There's a throw. It gets us over midfield to the plus 44. It's a third down. He goes from progression 1 through 3, and he hits his third, which is Robinson on Williams, the safety, Sidney Williams. That is what you're looking for because he's standing tall in the pocket. Everything about his mechanics, about his presence, about his footwork, everything looked clean. His head goes from 1, no, 2, no, 3. Yep, I want that. And it's in rhythm, the throw. Robinson didn't have to come back for it. He didn't have to adjust to it, and it moves the chains. You're going to need the other play, though, sometimes because we just don't have enough players. He's going to have to create some stuff out of thin air if he's, in fact, the quarterback. But the good news is it's not just proof to us fans or the media that saw camp that McKenzie's getting better. It's also proof to his teammates. That's really important, that he can prove to his teammates, hey, when the lights are on, man, the cameras are rolling, and it's a real game, you can count on me. I don't know that he had too many of those performances in practice itself to prove to his teammates that he's capable of doing what he did at UCF. This goes a long way for credibility purposes.
Yeah, it does, and I think it goes a long way in building his confidence to compete going into the fall, and really I think he'll probably hit the ground running a lot better. Obviously, it stands to reason. I mean, you're shaking off the rust, you're learning a new offense. He's going to step in the fall feeling very confident about what he's capable of because he's done it in a game-like situation. again, the spring format occasionally anywhere kind of leaves a little bit to be desired. It's not like it was when I first broke into covering college football. You used to get full-blown games, so much so that you'd get games where quarterbacks got tackled and hurt. And see Dan Kendra, I was at that spring game, and I watched it happen and thought, well, that's probably not a good idea to have your quarterback go live. But, that's where you're at now. The games, it's really just a bona fide scrimmage or practice. So within that realm, I'd say you saw, enough interesting things and fun things. But I don't know how fun it is for fans in the stands. I'll just say that. I wasn't up there. I was down on the field taking it all in, really learning a lot about the interactions of the coaches and the players and the way that they interact. But, I get it. From up in the stands, you might get a little bored.
So I stayed at 51 in College Town to watch the game. And, of course, ACC had a bad weekend for Knowles once again. Obviously, the umpire in Louisville on Friday. And then they've got lacrosse on for 10 minutes. I mean, really, you're going to schedule something that can overflow into the spring game. You had to go to ACC Network Extra for 10 minutes. There's like 12 left on the clock in the first quarter. Tons of stuff has happened before the TVs actually pick it up. But the product itself presented well because plays were being made. It wasn't a bunch of mistakes.
Yeah.
Plays were being made. So at least as a viewer of the product, I was impressed. I was impressed with what I saw. I know they're limited as a team, but there were plays. It was entertaining at least. The two 15-minute quarters.
There are leaders on this team. I mean, I know we should probably – I probably blew past every break we're supposed to take. You want to take one here and come back and wrap up?
Have to.
Yeah. I'll mention this in a second. We do have a couple leaders on this team. I saw that, and I got to see it right there on the sideline, and that was cool to watch, to see which guys stepped up and were vocal and who – adhered to their advice and listened to what they had to say. think Jermaine Johnson's going to be a leader for this team big time. I'll talk about him a lot today. I had a good conversation with him and just like what he represents. Really super talented, difference maker. First guy you would notice if you were getting off the bus, one of those type things, but also smart kid, contemplative, seems to exude leadership. People look to him. I can see why. Walks into a room, takes up the doorway, but has had success in the SEC with Georgia, so that was a good transfer to get. And, yeah, I do think there's leaders there on offense, too. I think you look at Mackenzie Milton being one, Jordan Travis being one, and we'll see if one of these receivers emerges as such, but Corbin's one as well. So you got some guys there that I think they'll listen to.
They don't have to, but it helps if they do. It seems like Mackenzie and Jordan get along okay.
Looks that way.
That's
they
important
for each other. I saw them clapping for one another on the field when the other had success.
In case Mackenzie rallies and wins the job, that's important. Retaining the services of Jordan Travis as a weapon and somebody that I would think be featured in the offense anyway. If Mackenzie wins the gig, right? You would think they'd have to find a way to get Jordan on the field.
It'd be dumb not to. I mean, he's a playmaker.
Well, the juke of the aforementioned Jermaine Johnson in the backfield in the one play, he juked like 3 dudes to give himself a chance at converting a first down, a gain of 5, where it should have been a sack easily.
Every time he does that, it's so funny because it's a testament to how talented he is and how good he is, but it's also something that just bores me now because I already know you can do that. I need to see you as a passer, man. Great. Running around ain't going to win us a bunch of football games. It'll make a play or two, maybe even an electrifying, game-changing moment. 70-yard touchdown. But if in the fourth quarter you got to throw and it's third and obvious, you can't. If you're not able to make that throw, that's not going to get it done. So I appreciate that that's there, and I'd rather it be there than not. But he did it so often a year ago that I kind of got bored with it because I knew the next thing in his development that had to happen for him to become viable week in and week out, quarter in, quarter out, game in, game out, was going to have to be as a passer. I do like that he made real progress as a passer this spring.
I know that they're looking for more consistency out of this player, and you said he needs to get in a little bit better shape when he showed up for spring. But DJ Williams, if he in fact embraces what he could be as a short yardage back, as a game-ending back, somebody when you've worn a team down and you want to wear him down a little bit more, he's a weapon to deploy. He will finish you. He will run right over you. I love that about him. He could be a real piece.
Well, you got to be in a position to salt games away. You got to be in a position to punish somebody. If we are, that is a real good sign.
But you got to win in short yardage at some point, too. And listen, Corbin does a really good job of finding space, if there is none, to get the 1. 4th and 1, 3rd and goal from the 1, that type of thing. But it's nice to have another player. I like those backs. Ward looked good, too.
Yeah, Toafili, Corbin, Williams, they got guys. It's probably the only position group. And listen, there's no work done back there. There's obviously no Dalvin Cook back there. We're not trying to suggest as much. But they're plus players back there.
Toafili runs the outside zone quite well, and that is a staple of the tempo that we want to run and the offense we're going to run. He gets in a rhythm. It's nice to see when he gets in a rhythm, too. He did that in practice. That's one thing that I saw a ton of in practice.
If there's going to be a game-breaking play out of the backfield, it will be him. The others will just make your standard plays and or run over you and wear you down. Yeah. Ira Schoffel, warchant.com, the website. He'll join us next. Stay tuned. 2, Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Great Monday to you and yours. Thanks for listening to the show. Appreciate you joining us. I hope you're having a good day. It's a good weekend, really good weekend. I'm Jeff, that's Tom. Catch it on YouTube if you want to watch the show being performed. You can there. Go back if it's easier for you to do that. Of course, the show gets posted Apple Podcasts, wherever you get podcasts. You can email us as well, jcs at 979espnradio.com. As we're wont to do on Mondays, we take it to the Phone Hero hotline where we'll find our friend Ira Shafel of warchant.com waiting patiently to talk. A lot to talk about, in fact. I should note, though, Phone Hero specializing in iPhone and iPad repair. 2 locations, 2915 Cary Forest Parkway, 833 West Gain Street. Online at phoneherotlh.com. Let's welcome in Ira now from warchant.com, where everything from the spring game to the talk about name, image, and likeness and what Florida State's doing to aggressively push that for its student athletes and baseball. God, we got so much. Ira, how are you, brother?
I'm good. How are you, Jeff?
I'm well, man. I'm very well. I thought this weekend, on the whole, just everything about it was a slam dunk. I don't normally say that. Some people say I tend to shade negatively, but I don't think this could have gone much better. Really, just in the way that the players respond to this coaching staff and some of the bright spots you saw within each segment of this football team. And then I think we'd start with the big story, which would be, in my mind, a giant leap forward for McKenzie Milton in maybe the last week of practice and on into this spring game, where as prior to this, Ira, I know you and I had talked about it some, he was really struggling either to shake off the rust or to learn the offense or both. But now I think we go into the fall here with an honest-to-goodness quarterback battle on our hands, and competition is always good.
Yeah, and I'm glad you prefaced it by saying it had been coming over the last week or week and a half. It really had. I thought that second scrimmage that we saw, I thought you started to see the light kind of coming on for him. And then last week we got out to practice, I think it was on Thursday before the scrimmage, and I thought he started looking better and better. And then, capped it off with a really nice spring game. So, I think early in the spring it dawned on me, and I think it dawned on a lot of people, that, hey, this might be too much to ask for this guy to come back from 2 years away from the game, to learn this offense, and to beat out a guy in Jordan Travis who's playing really well and is a kind of a freakish athlete when you add in his running ability, that maybe this is just too much to ask. And by the end of the spring, and you saw the way he played in the spring game, you start thinking, okay, well, if he can make that much progress in a month, then what's possible over these next 4 or 5 months, and then a full month of preseason camp. So, I thought, you walk out of there feeling very good about the possibility of having 2 guys you feel okay about or good about going into games at quarterback. And then, as you said, the other stuff that we're starting to take for granted now is that the attitudes and the buy-in and all that really does seem to be apparent. And these guys are responding well to this coaching staff, and you see it in a lot of different little ways.
Yeah, and I've watched very carefully at a lot of things. Of course, I want to see the players and the quality of players and the depth of quality players that Florida State has or does not have or needs to bring in. But I've also looked to see, is there real buy-in? Is there a sense that they trust this coaching staff? And I know that for some people, you hear that kind of talk about trust and pulling in the right direction and playing hard and, caring about one another. That's the kind of stuff a lot of times that fans hear and they think, well, that means we're not any good. So you got to focus on the, that's what they hear, right? And that may or may not be true in terms of whatever your expectations are. If you think we're an 11-win team, then, yeah, we're not that. Florida State's not that right now. If you think that this is part of a big step forward, though, then you have a reason to be excited, because you have to, at the bare minimum, have some of that, especially given how the program's been wrought with sort of distrust, poor communication, and just plain change. You've had so much change over the last 5 years. To see them now kind of comprehensively pulling together and trusting one another is a very big deal to me.
I think it's like, if you think of the, stories of kids that get shuffled from foster home to foster home.
Yeah.
That's what this football team has been. They had a coach who bailed on them. Then they had a coach who sold them a bill of goods and then got fired in less than 2 years. Then you bring in a new guy, and then you get the pandemic, and you get the dust up with Marvin Wilson, and it's just been one thing after another. And so, yeah, I thought, I interviewed Alex Atkins about a month ago, right before this preseason camp. And, and one of the things he said was, he's like, before we do anything else, we've got to get these kids to care about each other and to be happy for each other. And when one player does well, the other guys, not only are happy for them, but take ownership in it. And they realize that there's a value in helping somebody else succeed. And that's really, we talked for the last 3 or 4 years about what's rock bottom and how do you turn it around. And I think what he was saying, without saying those words, is that's really how you get off of rock bottom, is get kids to start believing in each other and liking each other and caring about each other. And then now we can work together towards a common goal and make something happen. It's not always just about bringing in better players. I mean, that's one way to do it. And I think that's definitely part of the equation. But really, from an elemental level, there has to be some sort of belief and trust in each other for them to go anywhere, whether you have talent or not. And then over time, you have more talent, you develop more skill, and then you win more football games. But yeah, I agree. I think that's kind of the building block.
It's interesting, too, because you could talk to players about it. I saw recruits this weekend, and, one of the things that you note is there seems to be a real momentum occurring for Florida State right now, which is typical of what would be normally a first-year staff, right, where you get somebody in and you get that new car smell and people get excited about it. But I think the only way that can be developed in the way that it has, because of how convoluted things were, is if there is a people person at the top that is communicating with these kids. And I think more than anything else, that's what I hear from players currently on the roster and recruits, that they're here because of Mike Norvell. They're here because of what he had to say to them. And, we got a glimpse of that, Ira, a year ago before, it all fell apart. Before spring, or when spring started last year, I take us back to that time. You remember, you were there. We went and had lunch over there, and we talked with players. Remember, we sat down at the table with players, everybody. Right. We got to talk to coaches. And I remember asking Marvin Wilson and Cam McDonald and others about what is it that you see going better this time around than what's happened in recent memory the last year or so. And they talked about believing in Mike Norvell, and that some of the guys that, Tamorrion Terry at that time, before things fell apart, Marvin Wilson, those guys had options, and they came back. Why? Because of Mike Norvell, and they said it. So we got a glimpse of what was being built, and then they got their legs cut out from under them because of COVID, and they all dispersed and went home to their respective places, and some guys couldn't keep up with the weightlifting program, the nutrition program, and they let themselves go, and then the losses mounted, and it all fell apart. In some ways, we should have known, maybe, just maybe, that glimpse was going to tell us what this spring looked like. But I think that they may not be a 9-win team, but they're going to play hard for that guy, and they're going to play much better. And that's what I look forward to in the fall. I think that's what spring told us. Now we watch this carry over into the fall. Don't you think they're going to play really hard and much smarter?
Yeah, I definitely think that's the case. And to compound what you were just, the challenge you just laid out, I think, how much everything got messed up even more when you go into the preseason and you got all the COVID restrictions and the COVID protocols. Think about arguments that you've had with friends or family members about COVID and what's reasonable. Do I need to? I mean, I've had arguments with Kim and the kids about, is it okay to go to Publix? Do I need to put on 2 masks? Can I walk the dog? Can I, what's okay with you? And imagine that, multiply that by 80 or 100 players, and then these are not even family members. These are just people that are on your football team and coaches you don't really know. So yeah, I think the whole thing with DJ Matthews leaving, and there was allegations about whether or not the testing was done right and all that. I mean, it was a mess. And I think what we saw in basketball season was the teams that were the most close-knit maneuvered that the best. And in a football program, a first-year coaching staff, I think that really it just was a huge rat's nest that I think it made tough for this coaching staff to kind of untangle. Now, going forward, if what we saw at Memphis, when I watched those Memphis games, when we first started hearing about Mike Norvell, and then when he got hired and he went back and watched those teams play, man, that was the single most important thing I thought that stood out from watching those teams play, is they played hard. And it goes back to, when Jimbo made his speech, we're coming and hell's coming with us or whatever, and all those coaches that do that. But Memphis's teams, that's how they played. I mean, they were physical. They hit hard on both sides of the ball, and it didn't matter if they were up or down. The UCLA game always sticks out to me when they played. They got UCLA to come to Memphis, and it was a packed house, and they got down early. But man, they wore UCLA out in that game, and that's what I think is what the template he's trying to bring to Florida State, and then elevate the talent through the recruiting, and you could see an even better product. But we're a long way from seeing that. But yeah, I think that's what he wants to do.
Talking with Ira Schoffel, warchant.com. Ira, onto the field, what did you see that excited you most? I know you wrote a column about it on warchant.com, the 321, that people can go and read. But what did you see that you thought, oh, this is exciting? I think everybody can see this. It's self-evident. This is a reason to really be optimistic. And then I guess since we're talking about this and we're getting big picture, what did you see that has you a little concerned? Because I think there's plenty of both, but all in all, I thought it was a positive experience. What was your number one takeaway on the positive? And then give me something you saw that has you a little worried.
There were a couple of things that were positive. I think that were not number one on the list. Just the receivers showing up after a really tough spring was positive.
Yep.
Seeing some guys on defense show some playmaking ability was positive. But overall, the biggest thing to me was just the quarterbacks, and I think it's been the biggest story of the spring. And as I mentioned in that 3-2-1, it's not a high bar to clear, but Florida State's going into this season with the feeling better about their quarterbacks than they have any time since Jameis left. And granted, it's a low bar because it's been kind of a mess at quarterback for Florida for 6 years now. But that's how you lose a lot of football games. And so now you go into a season with two guys who understand the offense, maybe three. We'll see what happens with Chubba Purdy when he gets back. But you have at least two guys that you feel good about at quarterback. That's a big deal, especially from where they've come. So that would be my biggest thing. Concern-wise, I really just think it's still the lack of elite players. Everybody's excited because Kevin Knowles jumped a route and picked off a pass, and that's really cool. But how many types of plays do you see like that? You just don't see. Amari Gainer's a guy who I like a lot, and I think he's got potential. Well, there's a couple plays in that game where he got exposed a little bit, kind of got run over a little bit. Brendan Gant is a guy that I've seen potential from. There's some plays where you get concerned about him. So for me, I think everybody's moving in the right direction. I think you've got some nice pieces, but you also don't have a lot of sure thing studs. Like you don't have a lot of guys on that team at any position where you say, maybe other than Jermaine Johnson, where you say, okay, that guy is going to win his one-on-one all day, or 80 to 90% of the time. There's a lot of the guys on this team who are going to be key players that you can't say that about, and that's problematic.
Yeah, they got to get some more dudes. They have too many, as they used to call them, Jags. Just another guy. Yeah. They've got too many of those guys. But at least those guys that are just other guys are now playing in lockstep and with purpose, and that will help in terms of competition. I want to, before we conclude, I certainly want to talk a little bit about name, image, likeness. I thought Florida State. Does it not feel like to you with a rash of really good publicity lately and smart marketing and good decision-making from over there within the football program, does it not seem like to you that Florida State is taking huge steps forward behind the scenes as well as on the field? Because I'll be honest, for a very long time, that has not been terribly well run, excuse me. There have been too many missteps and faux pas and problems where you think we're just a step behind bare minimum. Nothing seems to be going swimmingly. I don't feel that way right now. I feel like they're getting out in front of things right now and doing a really good job, and this is just another example.
They're definitely trying to. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
We'll see how the execution comes off, but yeah, no, really from the beginning of this, it's my understanding that all the state schools, Florida State, Florida, I think even Miami were really encouraging Governor DeSantis when they kind of pushed this through. The state of Florida would be the first, have the earliest date for name, image, and likeness to come to fruition, which would be July 1st, and kind of leapfrog some other states who had gotten an earlier start. And now we'll see if it actually goes into effect. Then there's the NCAA is looking at some group conference or nationwide policies. Congress has gotten involved. There's some other things at play, but the main reason the state schools really wanted to push it, and Governor DeSantis really pushed it, was because he wanted to help the state schools profit from it, and not profit necessarily in a financial way, although that'll be part of it, but also just from a recruiting standpoint. Hey, we're going here anyway. And I think that's the way FSU people have looked at it. David Coburn, Michael Alford, who's in charge of Seminole Boosters. However you feel about it, this is coming. So you might as well get on board first, see if you can take advantage of it. And Florida State's definitely trying to do it. Now, I'm a little bit, leery. I mean, I just, in business, it's not always best to be the first one to arrive. It's always best to be the first one to enter the fray. And Florida State's trying to jump in with both feet, and that may go great, but you also run into landmines that other people haven't experienced yet. So we'll see how they navigate it. But yeah, they're clearly sending a message. They want to be the first one into this marketplace. We'll see how that plays out. But to your point, yeah, I mean, Florida State for years and years and years was able to kind of sit back and let the success on the football field kind of drive the bus, and everything else just kind of came along with it. Now you're in a situation where the program is not having that success on the field, and they are trying to be more aggressive and more proactive in other ways, whether it's the stadium expansion, whether it's different initiatives they've got going on from a staffing standpoint, and then certainly in this name, image, and likeness, and trying to really impress upon recruits that, hey, this is a place where you can come and really benefit from your name and the brand of Florida State football.
Yeah, you think about a kid like Travis Hunter. I mean, most people don't realize this, but it should be noted. Most kids have no chance to make any real money off their names if they're just a role playing. Even if you're a starting right guard for Florida State, good luck. You're not making any money. But if you are a guy that's a complete stud, somebody who's going to be out front, like you do have a shot. You do have a chance to come in here and monetize your brand, quote unquote. And we can roll our eyes if we want, but that's the modern world. So getting out in front of this and trying to lure those kind of recruits that have already caught the eyes of the fan base and really fans around the country, if you're that kind of high profile nationally, is smart. Now, you're right. We'll see what comes along down the road. But at least initially, these kinds of tweets that we saw today and the announcement of Apex and, educate, empower, elevate, and all that, I mean, these are code words for recruits, I would think, to see some dollar signs.
And here's what's smart about it. It's even from a cynical standpoint, it's going to come. So do you want to be the coaching staff and the administration that kind of has your, you feel like you're being dragged along with it? And okay, all right, we're grudgingly going to let you make some money. Or for years and years and years, the athletes couldn't make any money. We're begrudgingly going to go along with this. Or do you want to say, man, this is where it's at and we're behind it?
Yeah.
And so even if you're cynical and you don't love it, it's just smart to do. But I do think that they believe in it. I think they feel like that this is something that probably is a long time coming, and I think it's going to resonate with the recruits. And I guarantee you there will be schools and programs out there that are big, high-profile schools that will play it the wrong way and will kind of begrudgingly go along with it, and recruits and their families will see that.
Let's hope. Let's hope it's each and every Florida State rival that we can think of that goes about it the wrong way. My brother, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Be well.
Thanks, Jeff. See you, man.
Take care. IrishFL, Yeah, let's hope Clemson. But I can tell you right now, there's a guy right down the road who hates all of this and has made it abundantly clear. Now, obviously, Dabo's done it forever, and he's said, the second players get paid, I'm out of here. Oh, leave then, sir. Go ahead and leave, ass. But Dan Mullen is a moron and has said a lot of dumbass things in addition to obviously tipping his hand about this. He hates it. That's why he's trying to get out. And he seemingly does something on a daily basis to try to get out. Most recently, a picture at a spa, which, what are you doing?
At a spa?
You didn't see this? He took a picture of the outside of a spa, which, like a massage parlor. What are you doing?
What is going on with the massage parlors?
Well, no, but I'm saying, Dan, do you read the room? What are you doing? So, a lot of weird stuff from that guy, and let's just hope, because
props to Deshaun Watson.
Good call, Dan.
Yeah, there you go.
It's bizarre.
That'll work.
But Florida State, and we've lamented this and had this conversation a lot, Tom, over the years on the show and off the show, just sitting around drinking a beer talking about the school. They've gotten it wrong a lot over the years with a lot of different things. And I don't want to get into the litany of things that we've kind of talked about and that others that follow this program and cover this program have talked about, but they just have. And I don't remember too many times, again, without getting into specifics, I don't remember too many times where we were like, look at Florida State. Good job. Way to get out in front of this. This is going to be a big deal. And they seem to have a handle on this. I mean, when was that phrase ever uttered around here? Ever? I don't recall.
Regarding infrastructure stuff, not often.
No,
not
not
often.
often.
IPF, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, I guess.
Because we beat Florida to it.
Because we beat Florida to it. I mean, that just seems shocking. It wasn't innovative. It just seems shocking. I mean, this is being forward-thinking, progressive. This is sending a message without question to recruits about the overall mentality of an athletic department, and in particular this football program.
The key to it, the whole key, is tying it in with the Jim Moran Institute,
Correct.
which you've heard spots here, of course, if
Yes.
you've been listening to ESPN radio the last year, and also creating courses. You're creating classes for credit. That is brilliant. That is a stroke of genius because it shows symbolically that the university is, if you're talking about student athletes, both ways. You're a student, you're an athlete, you can make money off of being an athlete, but you'll be a student and you'll learn how to make more money off of
what
your
everybody
brand. It's
wants.
really smart.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff Cameron, Show 97.9, ESPN Radio. Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Good talking to Ira. Tomorrow I'll talk with he and Corey. I'll allow them to poke fun at me if they wish. I do like that it has been revealed, is all I'll say, that a certain team was listening in on play calls. I mean, sweet Jesus, kind of takes away a little bit from the accomplishment, but we played it on the up and up. We're honest fellows around here. Maybe that was our mistake.
Yeah, well, if you needed a reminder that you're going against Gator alum, that would be a good way to remind you.
On a side note, all jokes aside, I guess I'll say that the experience, and I've talked a lot about it over the weekend, and I got to remind myself that we're doing an on-air show here, and I need to reveal this most importantly to my audience. This we talk about Florida State being innovative right now, or getting out in front of things and doing things differently. I'm going to be critical when they make mistakes, and I'm going to rip them when I think it's evident. Last year they gave us no shortage of opportunity to point to glaring weaknesses, in particular defensively, for example. But I'm also going to give them credit where credit's due when it's warranted, and not just because it benefited me this weekend and the fans to some extent this weekend. But I just think, one thing that's been consistent with Mike Norvell is his willingness to be open to the press from Jump Street. Since the day he got here, he has gone out of his way. I don't just mean paying lip service to access and telling people about how he allows for people to cover the program, but he has gone out of his way. They send Florida State's sports information, send us, members of the media, a list of practices that we'll be allowed to attend in advance. You're able to get back to them. Hey, I'll be at this one. I can't make this one. I'll be at this scrimmage. Hey, come here. We'll give you your parking pass for this. Just be here at this time. They really want you to know, look, you've got access if you want it. You can't, you maybe not because of the nature of when we're on the air. It's not like we could go to every one, but Tom and I picked days where I'd go and he'd stay here and then vice versa. And then I was able to go to that second scrimmage. And of course we were all at spring game. But the point is, that culminated with this past weekend where Mike Norvell invited me and Gene Deckerhoff and Andy Staples and Andrea Adelson, his entire football team, his coaches and their wives and anybody really that was associated with Florida State football out to his house on Friday night. I don't think he minds me talking about this. It was a really nice and festive sort of evening at the Norvell household, which is beautiful, as you might expect. But he's got a big pool in the backyard and a big backyard, and he had set it up for the players to have they had a mechanical bowl. They had all these games set up. Some of it was just like playing cornhole and things like that and basketball and all that. So guys were shooting hoops, guys were playing cornhole, guys were swimming in the pool, guys were riding a mechanical bull. They had a massive setup, this huge tent to keep us covered from the rain as you went through and got barbecue. I mean, it was a huge thing. But the reason that I bring it up, that's not a humble brag. This is to talk about what he was trying to cultivate. And I really spent a lot of time trying to stay out of the way when I was there because who am I, right? I mean, this is about them, the players and the coaches and their families and all of that. So I spent time talking with Andrea and I spent time talking with Gene Deckerhoff, who, of course, I've been lucky enough to know for 20-plus years. And I spent time talking to Andy Staples, who I've gotten to know over the last, say, 7 or 8 years. And we kicked around college football topics, but it always came back around to Florida State. And we were able to have sort of objective conversations about where Florida State's been, the lulls that we've experienced here recently and where they're attempting to get to. And I thought it was really interesting to get their insight to try to get a feel for it. Because I will say this to their credit, Andrea and Andy do a very good job of being as objective as you can be. I mean, and it is possible, by the way. We know people in all walks of life that went to rival schools or other schools in general that can be objective as to what they're looking at and have an honest conversation about it. And I feel like they do a very good job of that. And they were talking about how it's weird to see Florida State in this position, like coming to games the last 3 years and just not seeing any speed. They were talking about that. I said, oh, yeah, well, it's weird for us to see it on a daily basis. But, yeah, and it's difficult. It's frustrating. But almost to a man and woman, they felt like since Mike Norvell's arrived, it hasn't just been the local press that he's been good to. He picks up the phone when they call, and that's good to hear. Andrea said she was writing a story, and there was sort of this ancillary aspect that involved Mike Norvell. It didn't really even involve – the story was mainly on Mackenzie Milton in general. And she called. She said he called back within 5 minutes. That's not normal. And even though she works for ESPN, it's not normal to get a call back like that from a head coach. You might get an answer like, hey, I can talk to you tomorrow at this time.
You get the assistant, and then we'll put you on the schedule. Yeah.
So they've really gone out of their way to try to open things up because they believe in what they're doing. That's the important thing here. They believe in what they're doing. And then what I witnessed was the end of the evening, and everybody was invited to stay for as long as you wanted, quote unquote. But I think it was understood, and certainly I felt like once we had dinner, I should probably get moving and let them just have their night. And so I was talking to Andrea and talking to Andy and Gina. I was like, I'm going to go as soon as we get done eating. I don't know that we should be. I just felt awkward. They were like, yeah, us too. We're going to leave too. But he implored everybody, please stay, talk to had his wife and his daughter out there, his family, everybody was talking. You had players and some of their families were there. Of course, all the players were there. Well, he addressed his team at sort of right after dinner, and he introduced all of us as guest, quote-unquote, celebrity coaches, which he didn't have to do. He had to stand out by the pool where everybody could see us, and he wanted the team to say hello to us, and if we wanted to address the team, we could, and all of that. Then he talked about how his house was open at all times to players, that this is just an extended family. And he said some other things, which I won't get into, but it was heartfelt. And you could really tell it meant a lot to him to have the players there. And he wanted them to understand how much he appreciated their sacrifices and how hard they've worked, that the spring's been hard, that they've been hard on him. And that he knows, look, rebuilding's tough, and getting to where you want to go is involving a lot of sacrifice and time and effort. And, man, those players to a man seemed to really connect with him and that staff. And they voiced it. They voiced it when he was talking to them. They talked back, and they appreciated. They expressed their appreciation. I thought it was important. I don't normally think that I would ever get a glimpse of that, but it was very authentic. It was very genuine. I wouldn't be here talking about this if I thought it was just for show. I felt like there was real connection there, and I followed that up by asking players. I talked to, obviously, it's rare you're going to get that kind of relaxed access. And I talked to Jermaine Johnson, the Georgia transfer, who I think is probably the best player on the football team. And, boy, what an interesting young man he is. Just insightful and contemplative and intelligent and focused. And, he's obviously a magnificent-looking dude. I mean, that's a guy that's probably going to the league for sure. But I thought to ask him, why here? I mean, he could have gone anywhere. It told me, how good is Georgia's roster? that guy wasn't going to be a starter.
And he's an impact player right away.
Yeah. How good is Georgia's roster? It's reminiscent of our 2013 roster is what I thought, just to look at him. He looks like one of those dudes. I said this a couple weeks back, and somebody called me out on Twitter and said, who exactly would have played for the 2013 team, Jeff, are you talking about? That dude, that's who I'm talking about. He could have played for the 2013 team. Body type, strength, fast twitch, strong, smart, all of it. He could have. He's one of the guys. There aren't many. But I asked him, why Florida State? Because I'm thinking to myself, well, he could have gone to Ohio State. He could have gone to a place, Clemson. He could have gone somewhere where they're playing for national championships. And he just kind of quietly looked at me, smiled, and pointed across the room to Mike Norvell. And he said, that guy, that's why. And I asked him to kind of expound, and we just had a conversation. It wasn't an interview as much as it was a conversation. He said, I remember talking with him. He was on it from Jump Street. He was the first to contact me the second I put my name in. I mean, he was the very first guy, which tells you good things, by the way. And just the way he explained it to me, the way he explained my role, the way he explained why it was. He had looked at the tape. He knew who I was and what I represented as a football player and what he thought I could do. And then he said, and also, I'll be honest with you, after talking to him and him kind of laying out the game plan, I want to be part of the turnaround. I want Florida State to turn it around. He's like, Florida State's always been great. There's no reason for this. I want to be one of the guys who's the catalyst. So, man, these are really positive signs. And it doesn't mean, again, it doesn't mean they go out and win 10 games this year because they're not going to. They're just not good enough. But I think if you're thinking about the future and whose hands we're entrusting it to, you got a lot of reason for positive thoughts right now.
I'm glad you talked to Jermaine, and I'm glad that the conversation went well because he's in such a unique position to evaluate where we are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not just as a player now, but also the situation when you're being courted by more programs than just Florida State, better programs right now than Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
And so for him to have what it sounds like is kind of an old soul, he's like a grizzled veteran type that comes here.
Yeah.
And he sees it. And he's just come from Georgia, where they won a few football games the last handful of seasons.
Not the biggest of games, though.
No.
They still haven't done that, Tom.
They've gotten screwed by the Jalen Hurts Tua injury twice.
Yeah.
But that he's seen that and been in those places.
Yeah.
And he has that perspective, and he's willing to share that Mike is different in
Yeah.
that way. That's really good news because it's not like he came from a program that we never heard of.
Well, and I think, Tom, if you marry that, what you just said about it's good for a guy who has that perspective and to have been around a really good program and then to say, hey, this guy's different. Remember, we have a mutual friend in the media world who covers football all over the country for ESPN.
Right.
And he kind of helps out with interviews that their hosts do with coaches when it's the game of the week or whatever it is they're covering. He's going to be in the truck, that kind of thing. And he said upon Florida State hiring Mike Norvell, you got a good one. You know, I've been to a lot. I've seen us interview Mike Norvell, and I've watched Memphis games, and they may lose, but they don't get outcoached.
Right. They're never surprised by anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so that was the first indicator. And then we had a brother of a player from Memphis, contact us. And he reached out. He's a listener of the show. And he said, listen, Jeff, my brother plays at Memphis. And he named him, and I could look him up and see who it was. So he put a name to it. He's like, my brother plays at Memphis. And he is telling me, because he knows – the guy that contacted me, the brother knows that he's a big Knoll. And he said, man, you guys got a good one. You got a guy that kids are going to run through walls for. And that was from a player at Memphis, right? So this is the first we're starting to see it because they were able to successfully get through a damn spring and give access and watch real growth. And I know right now it sounds like everybody's singing Kumbaya. Oh, what's a spring? You should. I mean, this is what we were robbed of a year ago. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it was negative if it's not. If it was positive, if everything that I've witnessed is really encouraging, you got to say that just as you would if it were negative. So they seem to be in good hands. Again, some of this will come back to, I know you got to have better players. You got to be bigger, stronger, faster. You can have all the goodwill and work ethic in the world, but you got to get better players.
Yeah, the sources, though, are so vast that have told us all the same thing. And you were hoping that, we get through COVID and there is a fair chance before too much time has passed and therefore it's the reputation.
Yeah, you're going to get derailed before
right.
you ever get a chance.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are even coaches who are still actively coaching in college football. Maybe one that used to coach here not too long ago. That said the same thing. Oh, he's going to turn it around. The last guy you hired, he never had a chance. This guy's going to turn it around because within the coaching circles, so think about it. You've got a former player, you got a media member, you've got a fellow coach, all telling you the same thing. And now you've got people on the ground at Florida State who have seen it, and they can compare it to Bobby and Jimbo and Willie because a lot of folks in that building have been around a long time. And they say, oh, he's as organized as Jimbo was. In some ways, he's more organized than Jimbo was. And now you're starting to see the recruit. I didn't know that they'd be able to recruit.
I didn't think so. I didn't think like this. This doesn't.
It's pointing in the right direction. You can't go 3-9 because then you're going to lose them all, and we're going to be Miami, which is we win the spring and summer of recruiting, but then you get to the fall and you blow it.
They're not going to go 3-9.
I know.
Yeah.
But you take my point. The kids they're bringing in here, the phone calls that are being picked up, that's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. And it speaks to that kind of relationship building that we're talking about, where a guy connects with players and they trust it and sense it early on. We're guilty of this as Florida State fans and alumni and supporters and those of us that cover the program. We're guilty of something. We're forever, and there's a reason. And it's weird because it seems sometimes like somebody might be thinking to themselves, for a group of guys that have had a lot of negative things to say about Jimbo Fisher, they sure do reference him a lot in the positive regarding the successes that Jimbo had. Yeah, well, competing things can be true. I mean, that's at the same time. I mean,
he built it, he destroyed it.
That's correct. Yeah. And he gets credit for building it, and we witnessed it and documented it and saw the reasons the things that worked, and why the failures were the failures. So what I'll say is that early on, when I got to know him and did interviews with him and talked with him and convinced him to do weekly interviews with me, I asked him about his recruiting methodology. What is it? Because he was clearly having an impact on the recruiting
trail. He could project, too. It wasn't always the blue chippers that have already been determined.
Right. Evaluation is a strong suit of Jimbo Fisher's coaching acumen. It's probably the strongest suit. He can look at a freshman in high school and be like, yeah, he's not a player. Or he can look at a guy and go, he's going to be a star, and he may be a backup. That kind of a thing. He really does a good job of that. But I asked him about connecting with players, and he just said, well, you got to be really honest with them, even if it hurts them. You got to tell them, even if it's not something they want to hear, and it's going to hurt their feelings a little bit. You got to say, look, I know your high school coach has got you playing wide receiver. No, it's all well and good when you're kicking ass here in high school, but you're not a receiver. You'll never be a receiver at the next level. We're going to move you to defensive back. I think I can get you to the league. I think you got the kind of feet that can get you to the league at defensive back. You're just another guy at wide receiver. Come here. I'll get you in the league playing defensive back.
How about a first rounder? Yep. Xavier Rhodes.
Well, I'm saying that to say that to a kid who's got offers from every school under the sun at his natural position or the one where he feels most comfortable, to be able to sit across from a kid and tell him what he does not want to hear in that moment, you got to have a lot of cojones. You got to believe in yourself in a way that would be transparent, shine through. And in that moment, the kid might kind of reflexively, I should say, kind of go, oh. But then think about it that night when he's sitting on the couch, like, damn, that dude just straight up told me he can get me to the league at a position I've never even played. That son of a bitch has chutzpah. I may want to go play for a guy like that. I mean, like you start to kick it around. It's about connecting. And I think he is doing that, and that's why you're seeing these, massive numbers of recruits that are
scores of them
wanting to be here. Jeff Cameron Show 97.9 ESPN Radio. This hour is basically in the books. Kick it off, recap a little bit to start the next hour. Also go back over what was, I think, a good win for golf with Hideki Matsuyama getting it done at the Masters. I thought that was important. I was really happy for him. I am privy to the fact that members of the PGA Tour, his fellow competitors, think very, very highly of Hideki Matsuyama. He's one of the good guys on tour. It's funny what you find out, but like everything else, there are good guys and bad guys within a chosen field. There are fakes, and there are those that are genuine, and there are those that are standoffish, and those that are really, really affable. And Matsuyama, as much as he can be with the language barrier, is a guy that everybody likes to play with. Everybody has kind of rooted for in his time here. They all knew, players-wise, that he's been under immense pressure his whole time here. And I mean the kind of pressure that I think personally would break 99% of the people who had to endure it. I mean, he's been the country of Japan's shining armor and hope for a decade to win one of these things. You know, he had a 36-hole lead at the PGA Championship one year and was unable to get it done. And I remember that was the talking point then. He's been in line and had opportunities in other championships before. So you just wondered, is the weight of that ever going to be enough that allows him to go on and win it? And it showed. I mean, he stumbled across the finish line, but he did it.
I thought his response on one after the terrible tee shot that
was exceptional. To birdie two?
To birdie two, but I also think the putt on one from about 25, 30 feet, he almost made it. That told me, okay, he's dialed in the touch. Which that's the hardest thing to be dialed in
especially
when you're
nervous.
Yeah. He could play a little faster, but other than that,
sure,
super happy for him.
Yeah.
And his caddy bowing to the course went, my God, that was really touching.
It was awesome. I mean, everything about the way the way the comportment, it was really remarkable. Final hour forthcoming. Stay with. Final hour of the Jeff Cameron Show, at least for today. Thanks for tuning to it. I'm Jeff. That is Tom. Director Matthew filming the proceedings there on YouTube. If you want to watch, you can email the program if you like, JCS at 979ESPNradio.com. On Twitter, it's at J Cameron Show. And if you miss portions of the program and want to get caught up at your leisure, I understand that's the way of the world these days. Apple Podcasts will house the program for you upon its conclusion, as do other outlets where you may derive your podcasts from. You can find us. I would encourage thumbs up and sharing and 5 stars and all of the adoration that you can foist upon us, because apparently it helps others find the program, or so I'm told. Now, Florida State had a spring weekend, and it was a good one. I know I had a great time. I know you had a great time. We spent almost all of the last hour kind of talking about that, but we need to lead with it here for those just hopping in the car. It was a busy weekend, but a necessary weekend. And can I just say, and we've talked about it a lot off and on in the last week or so as we were building to this point, so good, and I mean this sincerely, to see so many fans out and about. And I'm talking about Florida State fans and listeners of the program and all of that good stuff over the weekend. It was just one great experience after another. And my weekend got started the right way. I had the opportunity to go over to the university and sit down in the coach's office with Mike Norvell and see his staff and listen to him kind of take us through the process of being a coach on Saturday, a guest coach, along with Andrea Adelson and the great Gene Deckerhoff and Andy Staples. And that was, first of all, something I'll always remember. That alone could have been a highlight of the spring for me, but it just got better and better. Had the chance to go over to Coach's house that night for dinner and to watch him address his team and talk with his players and interact, and to see just how bonded that group seems to be and how connected to one another, as well as the staff they seem to be, makes you want them to do well, because I think the process has been one that allowed them to grow closer together. Spring has been about sacrifice and service. He talks about service on the regular and what that breeds. I think you're seeing that happen with this team, and that was kind of my initial thoughts, the cursory glance, the vision that he has and his staff has and what they're attempting to cultivate seemingly is happening right now, and it's a good start. It's a good start. You're trying to win some games, you got to be willing to work with one another, work together, and see it the same way and sacrifice. So that was a Friday night, and then Saturday, you know, we were all so worried. I spent the vast majority of my morning, we texted back and forth because I know you were going to do a post-game with Gene Williams, warchant.com, and I was worried about whether or not this thing would get canceled, first of all. The weather reports varied greatly. I began my morning. I had a family breakfast. We were all sitting around. Gene Deckerhoff texted me and wanted to know, you know, how he wanted to proceed, if we were on offense first, defense first. It's a text I'll always keep because it cracked me up. He had diagrams that he sent me. Now, we have play sheets, and he's got diagrams to go alongside the play sheets with contingency plans. Gene had contingency plans. If this play doesn't work, I think we should switch over to this. Then we should do this. And then I texted back, maybe we'll run tempo, Gene. Yeah, I like tempo. Let's do tempo. It was hilarious.
That is amazing.
Yeah, great text thread. It's fun. I'll show you. It was funny.
Awesome. This day keeps getting better.
It does. It's hilarious. I want you to see his handwriting. I mean, it's great. He took a picture of a drawing.
Yeah, save that.
I will. So that happens, but I'm kind of giddy about it. I'm excited about it. I'm a little nervous about it. All of those things are true. But more than anything, I thought, well, what if we don't get to do it? What if this is all for naught, you know? And more than selfishly, you know, not getting to be able to do something this cool, that would have stunk. But I thought, man, Mike Norvell and staff get screwed around every turn for all of the restrictions and problems that we talked about this last week. Dead period extended, all the recruiting obstacles that he's had to.
The Georgia Tech pause.
Yeah,
we would have won that game, I think, if it was played
there was
continuously.
overwhelming momentum for Florida State in that moment. But he's had a lot of bad breaks, and you know, bad breaks, misunderstandings, things that you could never, you know, things thrust upon him that you're like, what, really? And year one, there's a global pandemic? What are we doing here? So I thought, don't do this. Don't have a freaking tornado roll through here at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They got to cancel it. You got 1 million recruits in town. You got fans and alumni and boosters who are excited to be there, who want to get back together and hang out and celebrate all things Florida State and support the program. And Oh, great, they're going to go into the practice facility. Nobody can go. That's what I thought might end up happening. But alas, we got perfect weather. Everything cleared up. It was beautiful.
It's a sign, baby.
It was beautiful on Saturday evening. And that allowed for everything to work out. And I think because it did, we benefited greatly. I know the team did, and I know the coaching staff did. They learned something about their players. They learned a little something about who's going to step up in certain situations, who's still got a long way to go, Tate Rodemaker. And, what they can expect in terms of position battles and segment battles moving into the fall. We got a glimpse of a little bit of everything there. You saw the young receivers step up. You saw some players on this defensive line to get excited about. Obviously, Jermaine Johnson kind of stole the show early on, what he's going to be off the edge. We haven't had an edge rusher in forever. I really like some of the younger members of that secondary. I like the secondary as a whole. I think the number one thing besides Mackenzie Milton taking a huge step forward in this quarterback competition, which he did, and now we have one in earnest in the fall between he and Jordan Travis. It's a two-man race. Ain't nobody else entering that race. If they are, they're coming from a million miles out to steal the show. So you're going to get Jordan Travis and Mackenzie Milton dueling it out day by day in the fall. But you saw young receivers step up, and you saw, I think, the other storyline that I wanted to see desperately, and that is, you've got some dudes on defense, and do they know where to be? And lo and behold, Tom, they look like they had a clue. They read plays well, diagnosed, triggered downhill, fought through blocks, tackled well. They got pressure on the passer. Some of that's the offensive line. And that's an area that, once again, Florida State has a long way to go in. They're still not that good up front. Now, that line will look better in the fall when they get some guys back, but they are kind of lackluster, to say the least, up front.
Well, plus a transfer, hopefully.
Correct. You're going to have to find
transfer in
one,
here, even a guard, like just something. So because Love Taylor can play whatever, he could be your Swiss Army knife. So just make your line that much better. The first team did much better than the second team. The drop off in depth after about 6 or 7 is drastic, to say the least.
The number one, and that's the number one takeaway on, I think, overall. Does Florida State's starting 11 on defense? I mean, obviously you mix in, depending on the formation, 3 or 4 other guys that would be included in that list. And Florida State's starting 11 on offense. Are they good enough? Are they good enough to win, 7, 8 games? Maybe, but there is a precipitous drop-off when you lose some of those guys. The drop-off between the starters on offense and defense is pretty significant.
Yeah, but one thing, and you mentioned this when you're talking about the defense, just the general picture, they get downhill. There's a lot of players that get downhill, make plays. They tackled well. It's a spring game, so there's always the constant evaluation of, did he do that because he's good or because we're bad at the opposite position?
It's hard to take a lot away. Yeah.
Realizing that that's true, I still think that there was flashes from pretty much every position group. When you're talking about offense and defense, those two phases, special teams are impossible to evaluate, especially in the spring when there's no contact.
Oh, and when I send them out there to make a kick and they miss it right off the bat, that's a little frustrating.
That one hurt you?
Bad taste. It hurt me, yeah. Well, it also gave them great field position. Yeah, that's rather frustrating. Just an aside.
Yeah. But every segment group, running backs, receivers, O-line, quarterbacks certainly, D-line, D-end, linebackers, corners, safeties, you saw at least something that you go, all right, we can work with that. And I think that's the feeling that I had if I'm just talking about not my attitude, which was in the 3 o'clock hour, but just looking at the program only. There are plenty of guys that you can work with to get you to 7 or 8 wins. Yeah. And that's where we are right now, but you want to feel like we bottomed out and we're on the way up, and I think we feel that now.
I know in the postgame, we were in the same location. I walked over and did a segment with you guys on warchant.com, and then also we hung out afterwards with a lot of Florida State faithful and kind of talked to people from all around the country that came into town for this game.
Outstanding experience.
It was really nice to see everybody and to mingle again and to have that. But I bring that up if only because if you're trying to get a feel for what the thought process is of a fair-minded fan who recognizes what they're watching, well, they're going to tell you, if they're being honest, we're not explosive. We don't look really talented by Florida State standards. There's not enough of those kinds of guys. But they felt good about the structure of the organization and how hard guys played. And that's kind of been the theme of today's show, is talking about the buy-in, the connection, the sacrifice, the willingness to commit to one another. and to the process of getting a lot better, which is going to take a long time. I mean, it's going to take all of this year. It's going to take this off season of putting in hard work and then coming in the fall being ready to compete. But I do believe, and we always get caught up in projecting wins and losses because at the end of the day, that's what you want to know. How many games are we going to win? How many games are we going to lose? Do we have a chance to be a top 25 program again? How soon can we compete in the Atlantic? I mean, I get why we bring this up because coaches love to talk about process. Fans talk about results. And ultimately, results really do matter. I mean, if you don't believe me, ask every coach that's ever been fired. You got to win at some point. But I have to know that in order to get to that place where we have a satisfactory season, where Florida State is winning 10 games, 11 games, and being ranked at the end of the year, I got to know that there's a process in place that people buy into and that I'm going to get kids out here playing hard, playing for one another, believing in everything that they're doing, trusting the coaches that they're putting them in positions to succeed. Because even though the talent level may not be good enough to beat the better teams on your schedule, if everything else is buttoned up, if all that other stuff is in place, you got a chance to win all the games against the middling or teams that were, probably your equal right now. You can win those games if you're doing everything right.
Yeah, because you take it. It's like the NFL, right? When you're at that level of mediocre in college, it's kind of like the NFL. Who's going to lose the game more than the other? Yeah. And then that's the decision. But if you go out and take it because you're organized, and the thing is, we talked about it last hour when Mike was first hired. Whispers from people around and connected in college football circles said, nice job. Even within the scope of this weekend, we were at a place with connected boosters, behind the scenes with some of the coaches and players. You were there for a lot of that.
Yeah.
You got another 3 or 4 instances of people saying, this is getting better. They're doing their jobs well. This is getting better. We're moving in the right direction. And that's not people who would be sycophants.
No, these are people that would be really critical if they needed to be. People who have been critical that I've spoken with and you've spoken with over time about where the program was headed and all the problems that entailed. But, yeah, no, I'll reiterate this over and over again. There's a guy that has been with this program for a very long time. I don't want to give him away. He's been a trusted I don't want to say source, but he's been a trusted friend for a long time because he's always shot me straight. If I've said, what do you think? I mean, he's been ahead of the curve. I remember one day he must have been listening to a show and I was kind of speaking glowingly of Willie and some things. And this was like early in the tenure. He reached out to me and said, oh man, I'd pump my brakes on all that. And I was like, what? And he's like, there's some things I don't like that I'm seeing over here pretty consistently. I'm just telling you, I'm rooting for the guy, but I'm seeing some things over here that I'm not impressed with. So he was one of the first to come out with that. He's also one of the guys that disagreed with me about Jimbo. He thought that, he agreed more with Jimbo than I did at the end. He was still – so he's been a straight shooter, and we've been able to have honest dialogue over time. And going back to a few weeks back, or 2 weeks ago, having a conversation with him, and he's going – we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. Hang in there. Hang in there with this guy. That's all he would say, and he wouldn't give me – and this is – and again, I guess you got to trust me. I wouldn't be bringing this up for the hell of it. This is a guy that would know. He's been around here for a very long time.
That's what it felt like to me, though. That's what Saturday was. We're going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right. And maybe
it's just the patience that gets tested, though. It's so tough.
And maybe also we've been burned before. So it's like I felt this before, and I was dead wrong. So I don't trust myself, but you see it through the preparation, and that's where opening up the program really helps.
Well, it's smart.
You can see the substance. You can see the substance behind it because I'll tell you, watching practice, I walk out of that both practices that I saw saying, we got a long way to go. I don't know about this. I'm not so sure. Not about Norvell, just about the roster. But then you watch a lot of those guys that you're worried about on the sidelines because they're not with the ones. And then you watch the ones go against the ones, and you see plays are made. That was the other thing about this game. Plays were made. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that there was a breakdown. The only breakdown was on McClain's touchdown. the umpire throws a pick.
Yeah.
That's why he's so wide open. But there wasn't like a coverage breakdown where you go, oh, my God, oh, no.
Yeah, where is everybody? Yeah.
McClain goes and catches a ball. McKenzie delivers a back shoulder throw. Running backs running over defenders and big tackles in open space by defenders like Kevin Knowles, who really flashed. Like you saw plays made. not mistakes that allowed for things to happen.
And they're getting some guys back in the fall they didn't have this spring. They're also going to get the Parchment kids. So there's a chance that they get a little bit better than what you saw. Certainly they'll get better than what you saw on Saturday because they're going to continue to work to that end. But I think, Saturday was a win. And I have already told him personally on the field, shook his hand, and I said it via social media, but I'll say it again here. I just want to thank Florida State Sports Information Department and the Florida State coaching staff and the Florida State players publicly for being such gracious hosts to me and Gene Deckerhoff and Andrea Adelson and Andy Staples. We were guest coaches for people that don't know that. We got an opportunity of a lifetime. It's something I'm always going to remember. I can't thank them enough. I mean, I have gratitude forevermore. They really gave us insight into what goes on a game day, how they call plays, how they prepare game plans. They really welcomed us in to give us the full experience. And I learned a lot. You know, I already had respect for people who call plays both offensively and defensively and how difficult the job is. I'll tell you what, the number one thing I was reminded of, and it's been so long since I did any kind of coaching, and I certainly never did any coaching at this level, but even coaching, as I've referenced before, in the late 90s with the local teams, the Timberlane Raiders and all that, you forget that it's really frustrating and difficult not to yell at people in ways that would break their hearts or hurt their feelings because they are trying hard. The game is still played by people. You can call the play that is the right call. You got the numbers or it's the perfect play call. And football is such the ultimate team game. One guy screws up or one guy gets beat and your best laid plans go to hell in a handbasket. And I had a moment I'll share here that's pretty funny. I called a play that, based on the defensive look they were in, was going to hit. And Kenny Dillingham's in my ear telling me, good call, we got this. And the play breaks down. I won't blame anybody, but the play breaks down.
Some of it was public. You saw that there was ire, so.
So the play.
From Norvell.
Yeah. The play broke down, and we had a matchup. We really had a matchup that we'd like. So in the headset, you know, I said something as I'm colorful. And Coach Norvell cracks up on the field because I forget he can hear me and everybody can hear me. And I said something.
Gosh darn it.
Colorful. And I finished it by, when I got done saying my colorful thing, I said, come on, kids. You got to execute. Norvell cracks up and he's like, I, too, have said that, Jeff, just so you know. I have said exactly what you just said. He looked over at me because I was on the sideline. And he was in the middle of the field. He looked over at me, just nodding his head. I've been known to say that. It's right there. We got it. It's busted wide open. Catch the pole, man. Yeah, I mean, just stuff like that. You're like, oh. And I forgot how quick it all goes by. It happens so fast. Not just play to play, but your time in a series, or in this case, we didn't have a lot of time. But I just wanted to continue to stay out there. Those poor kids had already gone through a full spring, and I'm like, no. 2 more series for everybody. Come on, you can handle it. Let's go. I just wanted to keep doing it because I really did take the time to let it sink in. And so I just, again, want to thank them publicly. That was an experience I'll never forget. And it was really neat for me and my family to go through that.
I know they brought all 4 of you guys together after it was over. Did Mike say something? What was that?
Yeah. No, Mike talked to everybody. He thanked us. I don't want to gush for days because people roll their eyes, and I don't want it to be self-serving, but it was everything. I've had a lot of people reach out to me over the last 48 hours and ask me about the experience and how neat it must have been. And all. Yeah, it was, guys. I'm not kidding you. It was one of the coolest things I've ever done. And this job has allowed for a lot of cool things in my life, and I try to remind myself how fortunate I've been to kind of do a job I've always wanted to do and what that's granted us. And I know we've talked about it, going to the Stanley Cup Finals together and national championship out in Los Angeles. Sorry, I'm beating the mic. I'm so excited. But all that stuff, this was right up there with those experiences. Just cool. And they were, it's, these guys, this is what they do. They're probably looking at us and laughing, look at these guys. But they never showed that. They always were trying to give us the real experience. I mean, Adam Fuller is sitting there telling me, Jeff, I need a defensive call here. Let's go. They're running tempo, and he's telling me, okay, they're in trips. Let's go. What do you want? What do you want? And and so they gave us the real feel, and I called the play, and they weren't afraid, whether it was Norvell, Fuller, Dillingham, they weren't afraid to go, well, we got a problem here. That's not good. That's not good. And, let you know, or if it was good, they were really good about that too. Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. Good call. Good call. We should get this. We should, this should work. Be ready for your next play. They let you, but it's so fun to hear the interaction. It was so fun to hang out with Gene. I mean, Andrea and Andy are great, but it's Gene Deckerhoff, and to see his face light up when it was his series, and I'm listening to that voice, that iconic voice.
That's cool.
Call those plays. We had a great time. I mean, we had a blast. And when he gathered us up there at the end to talk to everybody,
let's run a little inside zone.
It was funny to hear him do it. It was great. But Gene was on it, man. He did a great job. And afterwards, just, Mike is having the players clap for us and stuff. I mean, it was ridiculous. They didn't have to do that. But I'll tell you this. I mentioned earlier in the show that I got a chance to talk with Jermaine Johnson over the weekend on Friday night. I saw him on a knee as we were all gathered up, and he caught me. I caught him, kind of kneeling off to my right side, and I glanced over at him. He just smiled and winked at me, and I pointed at him. It was really, those guys took it seriously. They had a good time, and I know we did. So I just want to thank them real quick. Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. So, as we alluded to briefly last hour, and we should get to it here, given that the Masters is in the books, Hideki Matsuyama becomes the first male player from Japan to ever win a major. There are projections that that win will net him somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 billion. And I thought that was true when I read that, when I heard that, because I've known for a long time Japan sports fans are absolutely rabid, and they ride and die for Japan, and it's admirable. It's awesome to see. But it's also a nation that loves golf, and you'll find any number of videos of Japan golf ranges, like these 7-tiered things where that's how a lot of guys and women in Japan blow off steam after work or even before work. They go to the range and hit balls for hours. They love the sport of golf, and they've wanted to break through as a nation on the PGA Tour for a very, very long time. They've had players over the years get wins but no majors, and Matsuyama has really been the guy that represented the best opportunity. And so, you know, the excitement, he'll get a ticker tape parade there, literally, and he will be able to endorse anything that he wants. He and his family, they were already set, but now they're set in a way that you can't even fathom. He's got a wife and a daughter, and he's a very private man, so I don't know if he'll take advantage of all these opportunities. He's very humble, very shy, but obviously he'll now be that guy that they hold on high as somebody who broke through, and he expressed this afterwards, maybe this helps open the door, the floodgates, as he said it, for Japanese golfers that have not been able to break through, and he was hoping so. And I think one of the reasons that some of the previous golfers we've seen who came to the PGA Tour from Japan have moderate success. They would break through and their name would rise up, and then all of a sudden, the pan, for lack of a better term. Just guys that you saw, you're like, oh, that kid may be good, and then they're gone. Hideki's been the one that has stood the test of time and garnered wins and been in position to maybe break through and win a major. So I hoped it would be him, and I'm glad he was able to handle that pressure. It looked like it was going to break him. I mean, that opening drive on number one was a drive of a guy that spent all night thinking about what was at stake and what was at hand here, the opportunity. It was a horrible drive. Now, he handled the poor drive well to put himself in a position, almost made the putt, and then he birdies number two. He plays the front nine basically professionally, just the way you would play the front nine, because Augusta is one of those places where they place the pins on a Sunday where really if you're gonna see a massive comeback, it's gonna be on the back nine. Most guys can kind of handle a 4-stroke lead, if you will, and not give it all back, although after one hole it was within a stroke, not give it all back on the front nine. You've got eagle opportunities on the back nine, and so I kind of wondered, well, how will he handle that? And it got a little dicey, but Xander gives it back in a big way and, really butchered 2 separate holes, did Xander Schauffele, or else I think he would have been your champion because Hideki was really wavering. But I think, you think about this, Xander has to hit a 7-iron there, not an 8-iron, when he dumps it in the drink and ruins any chance he had of winning.
I've never seen that miss. Not on a Sunday.
Well,
short?
He's 10 yards short. Well,
you see upper tier, you see through the green, you see in the bunker, short and in the water? I'd never seen that.
Well, he says he flushed an 8 and then there was a wall of wind and it just never went anywhere. I trust him. It didn't sound like a miss hit, but it's the wrong club. He's got to hit a 7-iron there. I don't know if he was worried about adrenaline or what it was, but that can be a tough hole. Guys fall apart, or they make hay and they give themselves a chance.
I thought he was going to stick it after that bunker shot on 15, which was epic.
His round is a weird round because if you take in totality his runs at these majors, where he is always in position, you all at once would need to herald a guy like that no matter what his form is going into a particular major, you can bet that he's going to be in the mix, which means he's really good and handles pressure. Like, you can't just be a perpetual top 5 finisher at majors if you suck. he's always in contention, right? And he does have, 4 or 5 wins on tour, so it's not like he hasn't won. Some of these guys like Tony Finau, they don't win anything. They're always around, but they never win anything. He wins, but he's also come up short in these moments, and that shot can't happen. But I will say this. After that disastrous 6 on the front where he just, I don't know what was going on with that hole. He just flew off the handle there. I don't know what happened. You look from there. He had 6 birdies in the next 9 holes. 6 birdies in 9 holes to put himself in a position to do what he did there.
Right. Yeah, well, it's like the exhaustion of making a run to try to get back into a basketball game, maybe. Maybe he's, emotionally drained because that's quite the ride. You also need some help, and you're getting the help.
You're getting the help,
and you see the bogey, and you see the shot through the green on 15, and your heart jumps.
He
and
got
then
lucky there.
You balloon it out to the right, but then you nearly hole it for eagle. I mean, what a roller coaster. It was a sneaky good Masters Sunday because around the turn, it looked like this thing was academic.
I thought we were about to be bored to death.
Yeah.
And then it's not until really late when you realize. And by the way, it's so funny. We see these guys. They practice day in, day out. It's what they do. It's their job. They put themselves in these positions. He's won on tour. Hell, Matsuyama, Hideki's had tournament stretches where he won back-to-back years, the waste management. He's done a lot of things on this tour. To see what it meant to him, A, and then B, to see how scared he was. I mean, scared. He looked like he was about to cry after the drive on 18 found the fairway. Now, he spun the club like a Mac, and that's as big a shot as you'll ever hit in your life, and he pulled through. But did you see that shot of him looking at his caddy like, I can't believe I just did that? Because he was scared to death.
No, it's the weight of a country. I mean,
I know.
You can't fathom the riches he's going to have, but you can't fathom the pressure. Because think about, we were talking about this, watching with a couple of friends, what about his phone? What about his phone overnight? Like, good luck. That thing is going to break because of everybody is reaching out to you. Dignitaries, celebrities, people in the golf world, your friends, your family, the whole country is finding you.
Yeah.
If they didn't have your number, they asked somebody who did, and they found it. Good luck sleeping with that.
Well, I hope he buried it. I wouldn't look at my phone. If that would be me as a nobody American who's also ran on the tour. If I was in a PGA Tour event, I'm not checking my phone other than to talk to my wife or, if I have a significant other. That's it. But yes, he knows it. I mean, he knows it.
It probably
obviously
levitated. There was so much activity.
Well, you have to give a lot of credit, and I'm loath to do so often, to Augusta National because we've seen abhorrent behavior over the years. But we've also got to give them a lot of credit here. And I'll tell you why. They started the Asian Pacific Amateur in 2009. Hideki wins it twice. It's what got him to Augusta National the first time. That's the only way he could get here was to win that, right? So he wins that. They also did that same thing for the Latin Tour, equivalent. And so there are avenues for people to get into Augusta if you win that, right, if you're the low man there. He got here, and then that's when he won Low Am at the Masters 10 years ago. So you fast forward to now, that was a function of Augusta National creating growth in the game. That's a direct link to them wanting to create growth in the game internationally and to open their tournament up internationally. Now, of course, you could say, well, they're doing that for money, Jeff. Yes, fine, but all business endeavors are.
Right.
I mean,
but access is access
yes,
if you can get it. Yeah.
And he did. And he came in and he became Low Am, and then that opened the door for him to have a PGA Tour career. And to his credit, he could have been a superstar and just played on the Japanese Tour, of which many American players have done and others have done. And he would have been the biggest star in the world. And he said, no, I want to win on the PGA Tour. It's the most prestigious tour in the world. I want to win in America. He doesn't have a great grasp on the language. He's got a wife and a daughter. My understanding is they live in Japan. So, I mean, it's got to be tough and sometimes lonely. And he's done really well. And now he's broken through in a way. But that's Augusta feels very good about it. Pat on the back for this weekend from Augusta.
Sure. Well, I mean, and also for the ANWA, you have a winner from Japan just a week earlier in the playoff.
That's correct. It was a massive weekend or week stretch for Japan. I did note this, and I will no longer be fooled ever again. because we have a tendency, if we don't like the top of the leaderboard, to find our guy somewhere in there that's 5 or 6 or 7 back and tell ourselves he can come back. He has a chance. For all the people that were rooting for Jordan Spieth when he was 5 and 6 back, he still has a shot. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. It's an illusion. 24 champions in a row were within 4 shots of the lead going into a Sunday. That's it. You're outside of that 4 shots back, Link, you're done. You got to go all the way back to like Faldo, and that's because Norman threw up all over himself. So
that was the thing at the turn. I was just rooting for Hideki to win because if he lost in that way, like you threw 11 or 12 holes through, and you got that kind of a lead, you'd never come back.
Yeah, you don't come back from that. He would have blown a 6-shot lead.
I felt the danger for him.
I did too.
Don't do this.
Well, I got nervous.
Yeah,
because I don't like to see that. I don't like to see good guys, universally praised good guys, have that kind of a if you drop that ball, you'll never pick it up again. You're right. You can sense it too. You're like, oh, don't do this. Don't you do this. When it got down to
I love what you're doing, Xander. You're providing some awesome drama here.
Yeah.
Don't break this man. He will break.
I think that's accurate. There was a lot more on the line than just winning a Masters, first player from Japan, male in history and all that. There was his career. I wonder if this opens it up now. I mean, he's free. He's done it. There's no more pressure. Jeff Cameron Show, 97.9 ESPN Radio. final segment, which means I know I get an opportunity to do probables, which is exciting because the Pirates won a series. Hey! The Pirates won a series, everybody, and against the hated Cubs at that. Suck it, Cubs. You just lost to the worst team in baseball.
Fly the L.
Fly
Flying
that
high.
L. You fly that L, losers. Yeah, you can't lose to the Pirates, and I'm a diehard Pirates fan, obviously, and not have me make fun of you. What are you doing, guys? Convincingly so, by the way. Both ass-kickings the last 2 days. I mean, the Cubs weren't really competitive, Tom. You got to show up next time. The fans in Pittsburgh might have been bored. I'm glad we got that series win in because we welcomed the Padres to town.
Ooh. In those gorgeous pinstripe uniforms, man.
I love that team.
What a turnaround.
I freaking love that team. That's a fun team to root for. They got cool players, great players. Of course, Joe Musgrove, former Pirate, throws a no-hitter. First start, Padre uniform. Guy couldn't get through 5 2/3 in Pittsburgh, but sure, go ahead, go throw a no-hitter.
I like the trend, and of course I want to keep the gold here for Florida State, but I like the trend for professional teams ditching gold and going back to mustard instead.
Yeah, just straight
You notice it
yellow.
everywhere.
Getting that yellow.
The Rams did it. You've got the Padres, the Penguins in hockey. They all had that weird kind of gold color, and they're like, that's very 90s, 2000s. Let's ditch it for the good old school mustard yellow. It's good. It's good to see. The 70s throwback look is back.
Pirates were ahead of the curve on that one, Tom. We've been doing that for some time now.
You guys are one of the best uniforms in sports.
It's true. It is true. Just if they could play like it, it would be great.
But think about it. You're seeing more powder blue across the sport. The Blue Jays uniforms this year are gorgeous.
People are waking up.
The Phillies are using the powder blue and burgundy more, which should be their basic colors.
And next year, we think the Bucks are going to don
the
creamsicles.
Yeah,
forget about it. How glorious is that going to be? All right, let's cue it up. Let's get to some probables.
It's time for, how you say, with the pitching, probables?
No. You say probables. You don't say probables. You say probables. As I just did. Padres, Buccos. Good Lord. Okay, hold your feet, Bucks fans. We got Padres rolling on in with Yu Darvish, who's going to strike out 20 tonight. Trevor Cahill going for the Pirates. Yeeks. Appreciate his 4 innings of 7 runs in 4 innings. What do you give up against the Reds? Tough day at the office. Mariners, Orioles, Justice Sheffield, great name. Dean Creamer. Hey now. Yankees, Blue Jays, Garrett Cole. He's pretty good at baseball. Robbie Ray!
Hey,
Robbie Ray!
Oh, boy, this has been a real good Monday.
It has. Rangers, Rays, Dane Dunning, Tyler Glasnow. All he did was strike out 15. He's kind of good. Another former Pirate. Phillies, Mets, Chase Anderson going against Dave Peterson. Why is that play not reviewable? What is going on in baseball where they can't just go get it right? Kudos to your announcers. The New York Mets announcers, upon seeing it the first time on Friday night, or was it Thursday night, whatever night it was,
Thursday, yeah.
saying, oh, that's a strike. But no, that shouldn't count. That's not good. Good for them, by the way.
They're the best because they'll rip us as much as we deserve to be ripped.
But, I mean, they immediately were like, oh, no, that's a strike.
Chicken wing, man. That's BS.
That actually bothered me about Conforto. I'm like, what are you – I know you're scuffling. But don't do that. That's a strike.
I think Corey's right, too, when he tweeted out that it might have impacted
It screwed
Florida
us.
State Louisville.
It completely screwed us.
We got hit in the batter's box. He got hit in the strike zone.
Yeah.
Big difference.
A huge difference. One is obvious. The other is clearly obvious the other way. I mean, we got screwed.
Sorry about that, Knowles. Sorry about that.
Kind of cost us the series.
Yeah, would have been an important series win.
Marlins, Braves. That said, by the way, just because you get screwed on a Friday night doesn't mean that your bullpen's got to give up a gazillion runs on a Sunday.
I know. We're up 4-2. Let's do it. Close it out.
Marlins, Braves, Sandy Alcantara, and Huskar Noah. Just butchered that name. I'm sure it's Huskar Noah. I'm sorry, Braves fans. I have no idea. I'll find out who that dude is.
Randy Sklar.
It's Jeremy Smith. Why are you calling him Huskar Noah? Cubs, Brewers. What's wrong with names? What are we doing here? This guy's name is Adbert? Who the hell is Adbert? I've never heard that in any language.
ADBRT?
Yes,
Adbert?
Adbert.
It's like Dagmar.
Adbert Azalea is this guy's name, and I like it, but Jesus, Adbert? Trying to do this on the fly. I have to do the double take. Freddie Peralta, I can get you right.
Adbert, the sheepish starter.
Nationals, Cardinals, Eric Feedy, John Gant. Tigers, Strohs, Casey Mize, Zach Greinke. We've got the Angels and the Royals, Alex Cobb, Brady Singer. Indians, White Sox, Tristan McKenzie, Carlos Rodon. All these night games. I was bitching last week.
Yep, they've
Here
responded.
we
They
go.
have responded.
A's, D-backs, Chris Bassett, Madison Bumgarner. He of the 11.0 Bumgarner family. Dude can't play. Why do they keep rolling him out there?
Collecting checks, baby.
Just stealing money. Reds, Giants, Wade Miley, Aaron Sanchez. And that is a look at those that shall reside on the bump. I screwed up and did not give the credit to the
Well, I
sponsor.
think the official launch is coming in a
I was
couple
gonna say,
days,
it's
but
like 2
North
or
Florida
3
Payroll
I was
Services
gonna
has
say,
agreed.
It just hit me that North Florida Payroll Services got screwed. Sorry, North Florida Payroll Services.
And they could, you know what, really help with the Diamondbacks processing the payroll of one Madison Bumgarner. They could do it for a much lower price than I'm sure the HR department over there did.
They should suggest cutting his salary from the budget.
Hey, man, from application to termination, North Florida Payroll's got you covered.
Good work out of you. Good work, Matthew. Thanks to all of you who listened into the program. Hope you enjoyed it. Be well. Little Seminole headlines tomorrow. Looking forward to it. You guys take care. Have a great night. Enjoy the baseball. Be well, everybody.